Next time, they're gonna, are you ready?
Supervisor Patello is back from his hour and 33-minute lunch time. So
Supervisor that was complaining about too long lunch?
yes, that supervisor.
Not enough time to go home and eat lunch and take a nap.
I'm sorry, Anthony, I saved you some money. That explains
You
it.
did, yeah.
You should have set your alarm clock.
I should have.
All right, we'll move on to item number 24, the public hearing for...
Do we want to do 23?
Let's do the two public hearings
Okay.
real quick, and then we'll hit 23 with the regular agenda.
That sounds good.
So number 24.
24. So this is coming out of our Public Works office. We have Joe Hordle here to open up a public hearing, consideration and adopt a resolution authorizing the annual levying of a special tax within the Creekside 6 subdivision, which has been approved for annexation into CSA 55. So we have Joe.
You stole my thunder. So this is a subdivision that has gone through the development process. We have the final map on as the next agenda item. So as a part of implementing that subdivision, we do ask that rather than creating a new CSA, that we actually merge into the adjoining one, and that we've worked to equalize the services and the rates. So the developer is here for representative.
Are there any questions of the board? No. Okay, I will open up the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards? No. And is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, we need just a moment. Did you?
CSA 55?
Yeah.
Okay, he's coming down.
Yeah, we need Joe Paul Gonzalez, the auditor. He has to certify some election results in the,
Oh, that's right.
for the approval of this taxing district.
Oh, I didn't
just a moment,
realize we
please.
didn't have everybody we needed. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Barbara went to get him, so he's on his way down. You went to get Joe Paul, right?
Yes.
I do note that the special election ballot has been received with all votes in favor of the special election. So I'll present that to the clerk. And the, Joe Paul Gonzalez can certify that when he comes down. I can give a brief introduction. This is for CSA, the annexation of Creekside 6 into CSA 55.
Right, I think Barbara, we already went through all that. So
All that,
it's back to
okay.
the board, so.
Okay. Well, the board could take the first two actions, which would be, let me go to the right page, 286. If the board would like to make a motion to make the CEQA findings set forth in attachment A to the AIT and adopt the resolution declaring the intent to levy a special tax, approving the mail ballot election, taking other related action, the board could do that. You've already opened and closed the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
I will make such motion, Mr. Chair, for number 2 and number 3 per staff recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
And then the next action is Joe Paul Gonzalez will sign the exhibit that's attached to the second resolution, declaring the election results, certifying those election results. And if you could sign the clerk's copy, and then the board can take actions number 4 and 5.
I'm used to counting more votes than these. Okay.
Thank you. So now the board can take actions 4 and 5. It's straightforward. We're following the model that we adopted, that we used previously for the first special tax for the CSA 55.
It's the pleasure of the board.
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair, to adopt number 4 and number 5 per staff recommendation.
Good second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Let's move on to the next item.
Yeah, this item ties in with the one we just had on item number 24. This is item 25, and again, this is from our Public Works Office, and Joe here is able to comment on it. It's basically the approval of final map of TSM 0879, tract number 311, commonly known as Creekside 6 subdivision done by Stone Creek Properties, AKA Anderson Homes Incorporated. Joe?
Correct. And so this is the final map for 6 lots with the designated remainder, and that the developer is working on 3 additional lots in that remainder, but that still is working through the process. So board adoption for approval of the final map.
So the 3 remaining lots will also be part of this?
No, so in the exhibits, it shows that there are 6 lots, and then there's a designated remainder. And the plan is that designated remainder, which the MAP Act allows to happen, would come through a later subdivision process. So it's not shown as 7 lots, it's 6 lots and then a remainder. And then the goal of the developer, but doesn't have those approvals yet, is to put that into 3 lots, which would match the rest of the subdivision.
But they will eventually go into the same CSA?
Right, so they would come back later.
I understand that, but at some point, they'll go into the same CSA.
Correct. So we did accommodate, when we did all the accounting for numbers of lots, we assumed up to 9 in that.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the board? All right, I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards? And would anyone like to address the board from the audience on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, to approve a final map for TSM 08-79, tract 311, commonly known as Creekside 6 subdivision done by Stone Creek Properties.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, we can move back to item 23.
Okay,
the regular
thank-
agenda.
Yeah, thank you. So as the board recalls, 2 meetings ago, we actually had this item on our agenda. Actually, it was our last meeting, but we'd skipped 1 meeting. This particular item was on the agenda and was asked to defer it to today's date. So our Public Works Office actually did a little bit more homework on this to answer some of your questions. So again, this was in reference to my Chevrolet purchase of a vehicle for $30,000, $244, excuse me, and 45 cents. So we have Joe here again to comment on this particular item.
And so I do want to provide a little bit of information related to the GSA process. So under the county's procurement policies, we have the ability to use GSA contracts. The state goes out to bid every year for vehicles, and as Public Works, we're allowed to use that contract. We also look at the federal GSA contract, too, to make sure that for pricing. In this case, when we went out in September for pricing this van, the GSA price was $30,643. That includes tax and the charge that GSA puts on for the use of that bid list. We went back and looked at it again just because we delayed this a month, and the price changed a little bit. It went down by $100 of $30,557, but the price that we had talked with the local Chevy dealers about, we got a quote from my Chevrolet of $30,244. We also had shared the GSA price with Greenwood. We received an email from them on September 10th that the GSA price is the best way to go. It was not something that they could meet that price. We do have a local 5% preference that is built into our county procurement process. That's part of when we go out and talk with the local dealers. We actually share that higher price as a price point that we could go through and say we could pay up to that amount because it still would be, quote, in the best interest of the county with that, even though it's a higher amount. In this case, my Chevrolet actually beat the GSA price by several $100s. So they were very aggressive in going after this. We did want to make sure that they still stood by this price because this was quoted in September. They are standing by this price, so it's one that we're recommending the board to take. We think it's a very good bargain, and while it's not exactly in the county, it is one that portions of the sales tax actually do come back to the county because it's registered here. So we also researched that part of the law to make sure we could answer that.
there any other questions? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Very simple. Joe, they didn't put an offer, right? A bid?
Greenwood?
Yeah.
They did not. We showed them the GSA price, and they said that they could not beat that.
But did you give them that there might be some flexibility to consider a price? Give us basically that best and final offer. Did they offer that?
They just came back and said they weren't able to hit that price. And it's my understanding is we gave them the 5% number to actually, that there's some room to work with in that. It's just that they weren't able to hit the price that either
I
did or
mean,
GSA.
I was hoping they'll give you a price so then we can justify it if, you know,
Right.
the board, like, you know, more dollars spent locally, it's circulating locally, it's all local employees, but he never provided that, so there's, I can't
We
even
never
argue
got a
for- in
quote
his
back
behalf.
from them,
Okay.
no.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, though, I want to thank you. I think it's important that we did what we did as a board to allow local to have an extra opportunity, which is what we did, and thank you for going out and doing that.
Well, and I think it's a good kind of relook at how we put the AITs together to put more information in how that bidding was working. I want to retool it even a little bit more for if there's another vehicle that we bring forward. So it's really transparent about how that process works and what those numbers were.
Mr. Chair, I want to put this to, was it bed, rest, sleep? Sorry if I don't
Put
get
it
the
to
right-
rest?
Let's make sure that we tell the local vendors, give us your price. Because there might be some special circumstances that the board might be able to push it up to that level. You know, because he didn't know, I don't know, the language you expressed to
Right.
him, you know, you match this with plus a 5%, and if you're not within that range, the board's not considering. I don't know if he told them that or not. I wanted to make sure there's a friendly communication that give us your deal regardless if it's out of that range, because then the board can consider other factors, mitigating factors that
Right.
can assist in your direction. I just want to make sure that in the future, we tell that to our local vendors and they provide this dollar figure.
No, and that's part of, I think, makes sense, is for us to really embrace the local vendors and find ways to bring them into the process.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's really their choice whether they
Yeah,
want to
how
do
we-
that.
I guess,
or not.
Mr. Chair, how do we know when we're out of the ballpark if we don't start a communication relationship with them in terms of dollars?
Right.
Because you didn't give us what they were offering, and so we as a board don't know how we can reach to that level or how they can come or meet halfway. And if that's the relationship we're going to have with all the local vendors, they're not even going to bother to put a dollar, just like the well situation. And then how do we start the
Right.
process in which we really become friendly to the local community?
Well, it also gets into the whole conversation, is 5% the right number, or is there a different number that
There you
goes
go.
on?
Yeah, all those good discussions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'm at ease now.
Supervisor Vitello?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Joe, for, going through that extra step that we asked you to do. And certainly, it's also a message out to the public that we have looked at local vendors. Sometimes it just doesn't work out for them. And, really, it's not only just purchasing vehicles, it could be a public project such as like the courthouse. Construction firms need to have certain qualifications to qualify to, work on those type of projects. And there's only so much we can do to have our hand out to them to that, and encourage that. They have to also take that step if they want our business, too. So, we certainly, on our part, make that extra effort, but they also need to step up as well. And, so I think this has been very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Open up to the public. Anybody from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm kind of pushed it. I'll make the motion. Make the motion that we do staff's recommendation 1, 2, 3, and authorize the Public Works Administrator to sign the purchase order.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, we'll move to item number 27. Mr. Espinoza?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are on item number 27 this afternoon, and this is coming out of our Integrated Waste Management Office, and we have Mandy Rose here to discuss this. This is dealing with the Acknowledged Waste to Energy LLC as a successful respondent to the RFP process on the Resource Recovery Park project. So again, we have Mandy here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So as CAO Espinoza just said, we had one successful proposer to our RFP process. As it says in your AIT, this particular business is looking at doing 3 different activities. 1, anaerobic digestion, 2, construction and demolition, material recovery, and 3, separation of landfill gas. They indicate in their proposal they're looking for 10 acres, and I believe at full build-out, they would employ approximately 38 people. There is more to their proposal, and there's also a confidential section to their proposal, which I haven't even looked at. I've saved that for when we appoint, or hopefully we appoint a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee here to review and see if we can make a partnership with this business. So today I'm before you to request that an ad hoc subcommittee be appointed to begin negotiations, and we'll see where that takes us.
Any questions of?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. Mandy, this is exactly what we wanted to see happen with a resource. Whether it's successful or not is yet to be seen, but the idea that it's, we're generating interest
Sure.
is very encouraging, and also to know that we might have potential, employment for local folks, so.
Was exactly why we did it, right?
Yep, that's why we did it, so, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo that as well. There's a tremendous need for facilities to take this type of waste, and the reuse of it is absolutely a good thing for all of us to practice and to be able to utilize maybe some of the landfill gases in a positive fashion. This is really exciting, I think, for the county, and it's been a lot of work and a long haul to get this far, but this is great. Good work. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mandy, they're going to, and I know we have these discussions this fast, I just want to make sure.
Sure.
We're moving to the next step. They're not going to import material into this facility that's not being, sent to the John landfill, right? Is this going to be new material coming to the community, or is this going to be material, basically waste, garbage out of the landfill going into the facility?
Well, the particular, when you look at what they're proposing, again, if this is successful, they would be taking materials from the landfill, but I think what we've always known is that depending on a process, they may have to supplement their material with more material than we have available, but they will definitely be taking material from the landfill. But if they need more, they may have to supplement it from outside sources till more is available from us.
I mean, myself being in the business of recycle industry, I can tell you that I foresee their business plan importing material that's not going to go directly to the landfill.
Just like you bringing material from all
Just like
around.
the way we bring
Right.
outside of Hollister into our facility. It's going to happen. I know that just by reading the information. I mean, that's the wish of the board. We started the process way back then, and I mean, there's no need to stop it now. We just got to continue to support it. And I got to commend Supervisor Botello. You were on the front of this one. You're going to take the hits for this one too. This is the byproduct of what Supervisor Botello foresaw 5-6 years ago. So I got to go with the game plan on this. As long as I understand, my vote today means we will allow other material coming into this community. I understand that.
But it will be regulated.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if I could add, again, let me use the caveat to make sure we're clear. If this is successful, a couple of the items, a couple of the proposed businesses or activities that they have are going to help us meet the latest mandate about the 75% diversion goal, plus the mandates with AB 32 of diverting organics from the landfill. Anaerobic digester will be able to take the organics. As you know, we don't have a food waste composter in our county, and within the next couple of years, we're going to have something like that, so this would satisfy that requirement. And right now, almost all the construction and demolition material is going out of county because we don't have a sorting facility, so.
Well, I mean, not to make it as a joke, but any 1 pound coming out of the landfill will satisfy towards that 75%. Absolutely. And it could just be a 0.00% of total input. Totally understand that, and we definitely want to meet that 75% goal. I understand that. But I just have a little concern, but it's too late now. It's, that opportunity, was way back there. So there will be, and I'll say it again, there will be material coming out of the San Benito County into these facilities. It's a drawback of it, I guess. I just want to be at ease when I vote for this. Okay.
Manny, and after the subcommittee kind of negotiates whatever it's going to be negotiating, they will have to go through the whole planning process.
Absolutely.
correct?
CEQA plus the planning, within the planning process, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So do we actually need a vote today on anything, or do we just need to create do I just need to create?
My request is
ad
just
hoc.
create an ad hoc subcommittee,
Okay.
if you so desire.
Okay, so I would like to create an ad hoc subcommittee of myself and Supervisor Barrios, mainly because it's in our districts. And so we're gonna take the most hits,
As we have already.
as we have already. So, yeah, and then we'll work with staff and the executive committee or executive staff on negotiating with Acknowledge Waste to Energy LLC.
That's good.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll move on to.
So this particular item number 28, is coming from your board. Margie Barrios, Supervisor Barrios requested to put this particular item on with her attendance at CSAC. So Margie, would you like
Okay,
to comment on
thank you.
Can we set the 3-minute timer?
I'm going to try not to be too long-winded, okay? But,
They got the slideshow all set up, and
no. Well, it was a pleasure to represent San Benito County at the CSAC conference. We had our clerk of the board there as well. I saw her many of the different, meetings and workshops, and Supervisor De La Cruz. So I'm going to try to put 40 hours of meetings, workshops, general sessions, summits, and forums
Set that 3-minute timer.
into a 10-minute report. But it was the 120th annual meeting of CSAC, which is very exciting, held in Orange County. And the subjects ranged from the silver tsunami, of which I am a member of, to the recidivism reduction. And I'll start off with a silver tsunami, and what that is the elderly population is expected to grow more than twice as fast as the total population. By 2020, the elderly age group will have an overall increase of 112%. That's only 6 years out. Is San Benito County ready with housing, transportation, recreation, and medical services? That's really something to think about, because we're going to have it's going to vary from region, but it's still a huge number that we're going to have to deal with. There was discussion on water. The best advice that we got on water is to stop thinking in silos, that we make every effort to support the Sierra Nevada, because that's where the snow, happens, and they need to protect the water and watersheds, and we need to be there to support their efforts and what they're doing to make sure that we all get water. The federal government is not helping with their negligence to manage the forests and the levees that affect the watersheds. So we have to rely on our own efforts to increase water conservation efforts and explore the best science. Fortunately, the state of California has stepped up to the plates by passing the recent water bond. We were a part of that effort, and I think that we are going to really work towards that end. A few months ago, I talked about the gas tax issues and the shortage of dollars coming from the gas tax for road repairs and throughout the state. So Caltrans is moving forward to explore a road user charge. It's called RUC, R-U-C, for road user charge to replace the gas tax. They hope to go out and do a full study, but of course there are already concerns and questions. This study will begin in 2017, and it'll be a pilot program, and it will go into effect to find unique issues, all the problems that can be related to this road tax. The reduced gas tax is due to one thing primarily, and that is to the fuel efficiency of our automobiles. Because we are so fuel efficient now, it has created a loss of revenue. If we travel more miles and pay less revenue is collected. So they got to think outside the box. Oregon is already moving forward but they had their glitches, so we're going to learn from that. And so more to come. We'll see where that takes us. There were many, many more useful topics. Yes, sir.
Have they defined an area that they're going to do the test in?
You know what? They did, but I didn't jot it down. I do know that they are going to take approximately 6,000 folks. 6,000 people will be a part of this study. And you're talking about GPS tracking. You're talking about how many miles you put in your car. You're going to talk about urban versus rural. I mean, it's a whole array of issues that they're going to try to address through this pilot study. But in the end, maybe we'll have something in place where it will be more equitable in how we collect money for our roads. I'm going to move on to, I attended the Rural Caucus meeting, and they talked about basically the same thing as far as water. They're concerned about the forest management. There are no significant changes coming from the feds to help us manage the forest. And there is a major concern, and this reminded me a lot about San Benito County, where the Center for Biological Diversity is trying to ban motorized vehicles in the snow area, where in these small communities where they rely on their economy, their recreation, their entire culture relies on some of the recreation and activity, and they're trying to change it to promote only human-powered vehicles in those areas, and so they're going to ask for our support in trying to not go that way, because it is going to hurt them tremendously. So they encourage us to write. So as in the future, as this happens, they are going to encourage us to write to the folks that may help us to not let this happen. We need to be at the table. There's also talk about broadband expansion in the rural counties, and I know that our CAO is very well aware of that. San Benito County needs to be at the table for that, so it's this Emerging Technology Fund that's going to be available, that we take full advantage of it. There's also this huge statewide grazing regulatory action project, and that is to enhance the environmental benefits from grazing, protect beneficial uses of surface and groundwater, and address water quality impacts related to livestock grazing in California. And because we are San Benito County, we have a lot of grazing, we really need to be looking at this. Somebody made the comment that they're going so far in this, in regulating, that pretty soon they're going to want diapers on our cows. And I thought, okay, that's that is far-fetched, but it is the way that some people are feeling. And so that's something we're going to have to pay close attention to. And let's see what else we have in here. There was also day reporting centers, which we are all looking at right now as supervisors. There are best practices that I will share some of this information, like with Jim, to see how San Benito County can benefit from the information that I got. But it shows that the success for the homeless, success of those disadvantaged depends on the clients us removing the barriers for our clients, such as providing meals, transportation, housing, having those kinds of things available that makes these programs work. The other thing is reducing Medicaid costs, Medicaid for the high utilizers in California. And the discussion was in being able to integrate all services, and that's another direction that we're all taking. And so I was really proud to say and to notice that San Benito County is in the forefront of a lot of these things that other counties are not exploring yet. We are also exploring different ways of sharing data. Areas like San Francisco had like 75 data systems that can be very destructive to putting information together because you've got all these different numbers coming from different directions that don't necessarily give us anything to work with. So we are already through the AB 109 working on those kind of issues. And let's see what else I have. Message from the Attorney General. I attended the Administration of Justice Policy Committee meeting, and her whole effort right now in the message was reducing recidivism. They have given recidivism a definition because there are 58 counties and there were 58 definitions for recidivism. And so now the definition in the state of California is defined as conviction of a new felony or misdemeanor committed within 3 years of release from custody or committed within 3 years of placement on supervision for a previous criminal conviction. And her thought is if we have the same definition throughout the counties, we will be able to address the approach and the programs that we have to address getting and reducing recidivism. We also talked about not talked about, but had a presentation by the Board of State and Community Corrections. They were here in San Benito County. And Ray, I don't know if you were there at the CCP meeting. I know Jim was, where the BSCC was there to provide information and support for AB 109 to San Benito County. They wanted to be at the meeting, know what are you doing, what are you doing with the money, is it helping, what are your results? And so they're paying attention to what's happening after AB 109 went into effect in 2011. So I was very pleased to say that they are paying attention and they're talking about what is the word? Let me see if I can find it here. When I come to it, I will let you know, because realignment of the realignment, because they want to make sure that we have enough funding to do what we're supposed to do. And they also discussed the relationship between the DMV and issuing identification cards. And I thought that that was a great idea, because what that'll do is that will allow folks that have them to be able to go out there and secure jobs, to be able to get how identification is important for any kind of anybody to move forward and be able to function in society. So we are hoping to support that as a county. Let's see what else is in here. Proposition 47. That was just recently passed in November. It will have an effect in San Benito County, but we don't know to what extent. There will be funds available for Prop 47, and that's where they reduce felonies to misdemeanors. And so that money is not going to be available until 2017. So we need to make sure that we're at the table and that we get some of that funding, because it could have an effect on the cost for San Benito County dealing with that issue. I think I've got one more thing, Mr. Chair. Am I doing okay? Am I still within my 3 minutes?
Mr. Chairman, we could allow more time because Mr. Richmond's not here today.
It's okay. I only have like 2 more minutes. From CSAC, I want to say that there were a lot of discussions, with a lot of different committees, but CSAC has made a commitment to counties, as they always have, to become even more involved. They're going to do more county visits, so we're going to see more of CSAC in the future, and they're going to promote mini summits so that regionally they can push CSAC out to us rather than us having to go to them all the time, which can be difficult. And the last thing that I want to report on is the federal outlook. We had a CSAC representative that is a Washington representative. His name is Joe Cran, and what he said is the partisanship battles in Washington continue. They said that there's only one thing that he notices they are agreeing on, and that is that they can't get along. And so years ago, they used to stay in Washington, they used to work together, they used to be there year-round. There was a lot of socializing, and so they were able to talk and and build friendships and be able to get at the table and respect each other and make decisions for us. It's not happening anymore. So things are different. Everything is separate. So that's going to be an issue. The majority of the things that he wanted to report on were about the Republican seats, the control of both sides of the Hill. That's going to make a difference moving forward. There's greater divided government. There's flat funding in the budget, so we're not going to see major funding from the feds changing. There's a proposed shutdown in government again, as it happened in October, I guess, of 2013, if I remember correctly. And so his last comment was that it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years when we have our leading up to the 2016 presidential campaign. So there was so much. What I'm going to do with some of this information is meet with department heads and share some of those things that I've learned, and hopefully we can benefit from those. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know Supervisor De La Cruz was there. He may have, and maybe our clerk of the board.
Well, as the alternate, I'll allow you a minute and a half.
Even less. I attended some of the same meetings that Supervisor Barrios attended, and God, I don't even know where to start. One meeting that I attended with actually where Fernando Armentos, the county supervisor for Monterey, was hosting, and it was about gang violence in the community. And there was a presentation that really just hit home, and one of them was about in Fresno County, gangbangers, or what do you want to call it. They were actually made a video song of trying to do recruitments on 11, 12-year-old kids. Ooh. That was so sad. They even actually had the CD, the portable CD song. They were actually going into the low-income communities, going to the minorities communities, giving them to kids and saying, here, play it at home on your computer. And it's so enticing because we actually saw the whole 5 minutes presentation where the guys were just singing just bad things, showing their guns, showing all the money and everything. And I said, wow, that's sad. And then they went into presentations from a lot of the department throughout the state of California, how they're moving forward, how they got this grandfather foster program in, how they have the HOPE program in place where you can't leave the kids alone. You got to build a team around them. And in fact, some of them were saying we need to build the old concept of bringing a village around a kid. And they were talking about how sometimes leaders drop the ball by cutting those departments, those programs first. And that was sad. And I was actually being proud at the same time because I know our people. I know Al and I know Supervisor Rivas and I serve on the Gang Task Force Committee, Policy Committee, that we make every effort to help those kids in our community, to help these kids that are actually our future leaders of this community. And I know that we can stand proud because we put a lot of effort. And Ray, talking to the probation department, we tried to minimize as much of the cuts and impacts it has in the communities because a lot of counties out there, because of lack of leadership, they cut those programs first. They cut all these other opportunities that kids have. When you have a 12-year-old kid who's on the borderline of becoming a gang member and going to pass the right path, those programs, those support groups are no longer there. So obviously the first reaction is to go into this avenue. And they actually talked about third generation gangbangers, grandfathers, fathers, and kids now. And so I say to myself, do we drop the ball? Because we had an opportunity to stop it at the first line or the second line. Now we're missing the opportunity to stop it at the third line. And so they emphasized a lot about that. Some of the departments were very proud of the work it did, and I said, God, we already started that. We already have Al in our group. We already have, what's this gentleman before, the probation officer before, what's his name, the one who just left us? Brent? Is it Brent? Mm-hmm. How you have these ideas, and everybody's implementing them now. So that was one of the seminars I attended. The other seminar that I attended was about a gentleman that was talking about his experience traveling all over the world, different parts of the world, how he noticed that in certain parts of the world, members of the community will live longer, over 100 years. And he talked about one event where you had a grandmother, daughter, and a grandmother, mother, daughter, who the daughter was 62 years old. And they were talking about how they can improve the community, their community, how they talk about blue concept, how they talk about green communities, how they talk about how to get rid of the telecommunications we have, the cell phones, the internet, and all that. And they live longer because they know how to work together, they know how to solve issues together, they work together, and they get rid of a lot of the issues that, interfere with their lives, that relationship that they have somehow we as a generation, and I'm part of the young generation, right? We're part of the young generation, how we missed that communication, going visiting our parents, our relatives, how that plays a big role in the community, how we grow. And there was another presentation in which you talk about, and Supervisor Barrios talked about it, and that is the water bonds. And one of the components that I cut my raise and I talk about Supervisor Rivas was, it's actually trying to push for on gray water now. How the state of California needs to come up with creative ideas, because the federal government is not going to help us out. It's going to have to be on our own. Local jurisdictions are going to feel the bone of it. Mr. Chair, I'll make it short. I have other ideas and other comments, but I'll make it short. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. And I know I went beyond 1 minute and a half. Thank you. And actually, one more thing. The most important thing. The most
I knew he
important
wasn't
thing.
done.
I did not win first or second prize this year. Had won it 2 years in a row.
Oh, well.
And would the clerk of the board like to report on anything?
Gave my time to Heidi. No, it was very informative. We had different sessions on the Brown Act, assessment appeals, and just different legislations going forward. And it was very informative. And then Father G, the speaker, he started boy industries down there to talk about getting gangs off the streets. And if you didn't tear up at that and go out and want to do public service, I don't know what would make you do it. It was highly inspirational.
Yes, it was.
That was a very, very good conference.
Very good. All right. Any questions of the other board members?
I think you ought to give Supervisor Rivas 10 minutes of time in response.
I don't think he wants it.
Only 10 minutes?
And would anyone from the member of the audience would like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 29.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this item's coming out of our Health and Human Services Department. We have James Riding Sword here to present this particular item. This item is phase 2 of reorganizing his office, the Health and Human Services Agency. And he has a presentation, he has an actual PowerPoint presentation for the board and the public. Jim?
All right. That's not it.
Oh, we like that. It says questions already. You're done.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. As you may recall, last April, we came in front of the board and we presented to you what we called Phase 1 of the reorganization of Health and Human Services. So this is Phase 2, and we are presenting it to you today for your review and hopefully your approval. So Phase 2 is, let's first talk about public health services. Currently, public health services is kind of organized like you see here. It's not a single organization. It's kind of like 3 organizations within the department under the Health and Human Services Director. What we'd like to do here is to create a manager over the public health functions in the department, and then consolidate some things within the public health department, bringing some health education programs together and activities within that. We are reclassifying an account clerk to an environmental health to an accounting technician. That will allow us to use that person in other capacities within environmental health. That will free up the staff that we have in environmental health to do more field work. We hired, as you know, a public health medical officer, last May or something like that. Since she's come on, she's been very active. We'd like to move her from a .6 position to a .9 position. She's working with lots of people in the community, and including the city of Hollister, on issues around public health. Has been very involved and successful. We would like to reclassify a secretary in emergency medical services to a secretary 2 to recognize the additional responsibility that has fallen into that position over the years, and then change the title from EMS manager or EMS coordinator to EMS manager. The new structure will look something like this. This one line of the public health officer going to the administrator director, we're going to change that so that the public health officer, and then with the next item that we talk about is the emergency medical services medical officer, that they will both be working with me on a monthly basis on issues around public health and emergency medical services medical officer issues. This is the new structure, and we just went through and described it, and so this is how it looks, you know, when you look at it from an organizational point of view. And this is the cost. I know you can read all of this. But basically, the total cost difference on the changes that we're making here is less than $7,000. It's well within our budget. And in fact, yesterday, I think, I have to check on it, but I think we got some additional money from the state for public health functions. I think in the neighborhood of $40,000. So that's public health. Should I stop and see if you have any questions there, or just keep moving on?
Are there any questions at this time for the?
Okay.
Seeing none, okay.
The Community Services Work Development Organization, this is currently the organization. Now, we're going to make some changes here. One of the things that we want to do over a period of time between now and probably the middle of 2015 is to move the CalWorks programs from eligibility services into community services and work development, so that we have all of our work programs in one division and under one direction. And there's a lot of there's some reasons for us to do that. One is coordination, but secondly, I think, as I've mentioned to the board before, we have expanded funding for subsidized employment, and we want to take advantage of that expanded funding and leveraging it with the funding that we have in the work development programs to try to help people go to work and not be on welfare. So this reflects pretty much what we're trying to do in terms of that reorganization. We're going to take a secretary who has been working in the department for a while. We'd like to make her a staff services specialist to recognize the kind of support that she gives to our committees and to community organizations, and use her that way. We're going to move an eligibility worker to an employment and training services counselor to recognize the shift that we're making towards an emphasis on work programs. We're going to move an eligibility training and supervisor to a program manager to kind of be responsible for these functions that we're putting together here. We're planning to move an employment services counselor to an employment and training supervisor, again, to recognize that we're bringing more people in there that need more guidance. And finally, we're adding an integrated caseworker, mostly because of the changes that are taking place in the CalWorks program. The legislature is very interested in the counties being successful with subsidized employment, and the counties are very interested in being successful, hopefully so that the legislature will continue to fund those kinds of activities in our communities. As I've said to you before, the keys to getting out of poverty are access to health, access to education, and access to jobs. And if we can, bring those three things together, we can make them work better.
Mr. Chair, if I may. One of the things I'd like to highlight from that is that we've utilized this program since I've been on board, even in the IT office. And most of the employees that we've actually hired on, obviously through the WI program and other programs that are offered here, have actually received full-time jobs in the county and also, too, in the private sector. So from the IT side of things, it's definitely been a great program. We've also used that program here in the administrative office as well, in the front desk from the secretary and the HR side of things and the clerk of the board. So we've definitely used the program, and most of the people that have gone through these programs actually have received jobs, either with the county or with the private sector. So I just wanted to relay that it's a really good program.
Thank you. And then one of the things that happens in community services and workforce development is the public authority, which is part of the in-home supportive services program. This is the part of the program that deals with the providers that go out there and actually do the service. There are changes that are taking place in that program, more monitoring we have to do. There's some federal rules coming out around overtime issues and things like that. So we want to, add some more staff in there. And we'll be reviewing that as we move into 2015, because we're not quite sure what all these changes are going to mean. But we want to be sure that we try to stay on top of that so that people get service in the community and the providers get paid the way they should be paid. So this is the new CSWD organization. And again, this is the fiscal impact, and the total impact on this net is $100 and some thousand. And all of that money is available through CalWorks, through Community Services, Work Development, and the In-Home Supportive Services Program. I think we've explained to you before that if the state and the federal government require us to do things in in-home supportive services, for example, they are required to pay for it. So there is no county general funds involved in any of these changes. Then finally, in the Departmental Support Division, and in social services and eligibility, this is just kind of a cleanup. We added in the last round, we added a staff services manager who is responsible for human resources within Health and Human Services. You may or may not be aware that probably about 70% of our HR transactions are done through a statewide agency called Merit System. And so those are actions that do not run through the county system. This has given us an ability to really stay on top of those things and work on those things. Basically, what we want to do here is to take an office assistant 3 who has been supporting that function, and we're recommending that she be reclassified and moved up. And we want to add a staff services, staff development manager to the department. Now, the goal here is by adding this position, and I've done this in other departments, we want to end up with an individualized training plan for every employee that we have in the department, all 120 of them. And we want them to be able to direct their training activities, but we also want to give them the ability and the flexibility to say, I'd like to learn how to do some of these things, and help bring those resources to them, in various ways, and hopefully a lot. We're looking right now at an e-learning site that we are thinking about bringing into the department that brings online training to the staff. So this, again, We want to move the office assistant to a secretary two to recognize the personnel work that she's doing. We want to bring in a staff development manager. We would like to add here an additional eligibility supervisor for caseload growth in Medi-Cal. We've gone from around 4,000 Medi-Cal cases to about 7,000 Medi-Cal cases since last July, and we expect to see another 1,000 or 1,200 during this enrollment period that we're in right now. And then we'd like to move a legal clerk in child welfare services to a legal secretary to recognize the breadth of work that she's doing, but also to ask her to, in that role, which is permissible under legal secretary, to monitor and take care of our statewide automated child welfare services system. And these are the changes in the departmental support division and the funding, and this one, I actually think overall we had a savings on this one. So there we are, and that's our phase two. Staff has done a lot of work on this. We've had lots of discussions with HR, the county administrator, looking at this, looking at how things are done in other counties, trying to model ourselves in a way where we can bring together within the department a focus on our eligibility services, our social services, community services, work development, and public health. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Just to comment, Mr. Chair, that it's really good to see that you involved a lot of people, including the folks that work in the department.
Yeah.
They had a lot of say in this, and you talked to the budget unit, not the budget units, what am I thinking? The union.
Yes.
And make sure that they got involved.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's done for the right reasons.
Yeah.
The checks and balances, the improved program,
Yeah.
support, all of that is key to a successful department, and so I think you've done the right thing.
Right, thank you very much.
I'll open it up to the public. Anyone from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve organizational changes to Health and Human Services Agency as indicated in the staff report.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, and on behalf of the agency, they appreciate your confidence in the work that they do.
Our last item on our regular agenda is item number 30, and again, this is coming out of our Health and Human Services Agency, and we have Jim here again. This particular item is requesting your board to approve a contract for emergency medical services, the new medical director, and I know that we had our, I think, board member on that panel, so anyways, I just want to leave it here for Jim to comment further on this. Jim?
Okay. So this is a contract for the new Emergency Medical Services Medical Director. I just want to give you a little kind of background on how this came about. First of all, Dr. Benedict, who had been with us for over 20 years, decided to retire and spend more time on his boat. So his retirement date was the end of November. We went out with a broad recruitment, including sending the recruitment notices out to as many local people as we knew about. And we received back 4 applications. None of those applications were from local people. So we pulled together a panel comprised of a representative from Hazel Hawkins Hospital, a retired county employee, who many of you may know, I think Margie Riopel, Maria Corona from our executive team, and Marcy Morrow who's involved in emergency medical services. They interviewed the 4 candidates, and there was a clear, outstanding person that they recommended to us, and that is Dr. David Ghilarducci. Now, it just so happens that Dr. David Ghilarducci is also going to be the emergency medical officer for Santa Cruz County. They hired him probably a month or 6 weeks before we made an offer to him. But he was clearly the number one choice of the interview committee. He and I had conversations. He's very excited about working with San Bernardino County. He and Dr. Goyle, who's our public health medical officer, are going to be working closely together with me to look at all of those issues between public health and emergency medical services. And he has agreed to a contract which is attached to your action here, and today we're asking you to approve that contract. We made it a 1-year contract, and we'll look at where we are after 1 year with Dr. I have to look at his name, Ghilarducci. So we're asking the board to approve the contract today.
Are there any questions of the board?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Since he's doing the same work in Santa Cruz as he's doing in San Benito County, and we have shared emergencies, disasters.
Yes.
Santa Cruz and San Benito County, is there any thought to where he'll be and how he'll be assisting both counties that are affected by the same emergency disaster?
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm going to call him Dr. G.
Okay.
And Dr. Goyle and myself are going to start sitting down and having conversations every month to see how that works out. One of the things that Dr. Goyle has said to me is most counties have what they call interagency non-monetary agreements on how we back each other up. And one of the things she's been working on with county council and out at the agency is how do we put those agreements together to be sure they work for all of us and back ourselves up, and what do we do and how do we describe what we do in those kinds of shared emergencies.
Okay. It is, Mr. Chair, if I still have the floor, it is a very impressive resume.
Yes.
One of the best that I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And, but I know that one of the concerns that were shared when Dr. Benedict was doing this is that he lived out of the county and might not be available to the county in the event of an emergency simply because of the travel time. And so, but if you're coordinating
Yes.
other folks in our county to make sure that those needs are met,
Yeah.
whether he's here or not, I think we need to do that as aggressively as possible.
Well, I think that, you talk about good things happening in San Bernardino County. Having Dr. Goyle and now having Dr. Ghilarducci is just a plum for this county to have people of this caliber, who want to work here. And Dr. Goyle has just gotten so deeply involved in, and the fact that the three of us are going to sit down every month and talk about these kinds of issues, I see nothing but improvement occurring out of those conversations.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Jim, didn't we share Dr. Benedict with Santa Cruz County?
Yes, we did.
So we haven't lost anything,
No.
in that arrangement, and it sounds like you have a plan to make it even better.
I hope so.
I think the only difference is that Dr. G lives in Santa Clara County, and he's now going to be serving Santa Cruz and San Benito County. So there's a triangle now that wasn't there before.
Well,
So-
you know where he's going to be at, right? He's going to be at home. Mr.
Supervisor
Chair,
De La Cruz?
yeah, I share the same comments and concerns as Supervisor Barrios. I had discussions with other members of the community in the medical arena about issues with Dr. Benedict, and one of them, top on the list of concern, was Santa Cruz. And just like our chairman said, we're basically replacing names and same concern in Santa Cruz. I understand the 1 year.
Yes.
It's a little bit high, but I'm okay. let's hope that the goal of this 1 year is to improve relationship and to provide a security blanket in case of an emergency situation.
Well, I think that is going to be the focus of our discussions from, day one when the three of us start to meet together.
Yeah, and then number 2 on the list for me is get out of the political arena.
Yeah.
His goal will be just for medical policies implementations and not political agendas. I want to make it clear right now.
My goal is to leave politics to you guys.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Let us 5 handle it.
Let us fight in here.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm on board. It's a good idea. It's a good concept. It's just those 2 key elements as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other board members have any comments or questions? Open it up to the public. Anybody from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the contract for Emergency Medical Services Medical Director effective December 1st, 2014 through November 30th, 2015, not to exceed $71,000.
Second, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, that is it for regular, so Matt, if you'll,
Yep,
And the
thank you,
work.
Mr. Chair.
It's just now beginning.
Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 31 through 34 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 31 is a performance evaluation of a public employee. The title is the Agricultural Commissioner and Sealer of Weights and Measures. The authority to meet in closed session can be found in Government Code Section 54957. In regards to agenda item number 32, the board will meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of section 54956.9 in one case. Agenda item number 33 is to confer with legal counsel regarding existing litigation under subdivisions A and D1 of section 54956.9 in the case of the Center for Biological Diversity versus San Benito County et al., filed in the Superior Court of California in the County of Monterey, under cause number M123956. Citadel Exploration, Inc. is the real party in interest. And finally, agenda item number 34 is to confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivisions D2, E2, and E3 of Government Code Section 54956.9 in one case. The facts and circumstances justifying the closed session are a receipt of a letter from Citadel, Inc., dated November 6, 2014, following the passage of Measure J, and the October 21st, 2014 adoption of the Measure J implementing ordinance. Thank you.
is there anybody from the public that'd like to address the board on these closed session items? Seeing none, we'll adjourn into closed session.
So